Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are so delighted that you are a part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Thank you for joining us in our effort to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. We have two great guests for you today. A little bit later on, we'll be meeting Susan Rose, and she's going to be telling us all about Let's Make a Rainbow. But right now, we'd like to welcome to the show, welcome back to the show, the author of Layal and the Bots Free, and also FriendBots, Vicki Fang. Hey, Vicki. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back.
I'm really excited to have you back here. You know, we've spent a lot of time talking to different guests about STEM and how we can introduce our young kids to the STEM and the STEAM fields. And Layal and the Bots is certainly a great vehicle to do that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to have the third book coming out, I guess it came out, and there will be a fourth one next year. So it's really fun to see how kids have been drawn to the books and how they've started making their own creations. That's one of my favorite things, is seeing kids excited about the books and making their own inventions using the same process that Layal does. So yeah, I'm really excited.
So can you tell us a little bit about Layal's process? Maybe, we'll inspire some parents to get together with their kids after they listen to this episode.
Absolutely. So Layal follows a product design process, which is the same process that I followed when I was a product designer at Google. I used to design experiences for kids. So I worked with a collaborative team, much like Layal and the Bots. They work together, and each bot has their own skill set that they bring to the table, and they all work together. And it starts off with, they identify a problem that they need to solve, and it's usually because they've met someone at their show that needs some help. And they start with investigation. So they do research. They try to understand the problem. Why is it a problem? What is preventing an obstacle for the person who needs it solved? And then after they do the research, then it goes into ideation. So they start brainstorming and coming up with ideas. After they come up with ideas, it goes into implementation. You'll notice that I'm using all I words because I call this process the 4 I's. So the implementation is they build stuff, they make stuff, they code it. So Bop is a software engineer, and Boop is a researcher. Boop is a mechanical engineer, and Beep is a researcher, and Layal is sort of the product designer, product manager. And they build their invention. And then, of course, like any invention process, it doesn't work the first time around. So there's often obstacles and failures. And so the fourth step in the 4 I's is improve. And so Layal and the Bots have to work together to figure out how they can make their invention better. And it's, of course, a cyclical process. So they're always, doing some investigation and trying to figure out how to make things better. And so those are the 4 I's. And I've had, the great fortune to run workshops with kids where they will invent something during the workshop and go through these 4 I's. And it's really fun. I love seeing kids' ideas, and I always leave those sessions so inspired. But yes, that is the 4 I's process that Layal and the Bots go through.
And what a neat way to introduce this, because this is a very real world kind of exercise, process that engineers and scientists follow. And what a great time to introduce kids to this when they're young. And it's also, I think it's really empowering to let kids know that they have the power to solve problems. It's great to rely on mom and dad and our teachers and our older siblings, but wow, it's really cool to know that we can do things ourselves.
Exactly. And that's what I also feel like the books, they're around STEM and technology and engineering, but the process is a problem solving process that kids can use in any aspect of their life. It doesn't have to involve technology. You see like the shoes in the front hall are messy. It's a problem. What can you do to solve it? And maybe you start thinking about ideas to solve it. So it's really a problem solving technique for any kind of problem. So I love that it's applicable in that way for kids to see things in the world around them and try to make their world a better place in small ways or big ways.
I wonder if my niece used that technique because she has a bazillion shoes. And what she did is she took all the different shoe boxes and she hung them on the wall. So when you go into her room, it's like a shoe museum.
That's fantastic. I love that. I bet she did in some form. It's not always that the four eyes are sort of this clean waterfall step by step. It's often messier than that. And maybe you start with an idea and then you realize there's a problem and you do some investigation. But all of those aspects of the problem solving are involved in creating any kind of design solution. So I'm betting that she did, and it sounds like she came up with a fabulous idea.
She did, and she is looking forward to being some kind of engineer. She hasn't decided yet, and that's the neat thing about being in high school. You don't need to decide yet.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. It sounds like she's ready for it.
Yeah. And, one of the things, too, you're talking about, you don't have to go in order. Sometimes you can start with an idea and then think about how you can improve it, and I'm guessing it would be a lot of fun for a family to kind of to look at something that they use in their everyday lives and love and just sit down and start thinking, how can we make this thing better?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like my kids have started doing that too. I have a 5-year-old and he's always finding stuff around the house and just, coming up with ideas about what he could do with it or, and there's a bit of a tinkering method to his creation too, which I love, where he just sort of gathers a bunch of stuff and sort of says, well, if I put this all together, what could I do with it? And that's another way of coming up with ideas and brainstorming. So I love that too.
Yeah. Now we're also waiting for the release of FriendBots. Tell us about this project, please.
Yes. So FriendBots is an early reader comic book from HarperCollins. So they're launching a new line called I Can Read Comics. And this is introducing sort of the comic graphic novel format to early readers. And FriendBots is my author illustrator debut. So I'm doing the illustrations for this one. So I'm really excited about that. And it's about 2 robots, Blink and Block. And it's mostly about them navigating friendship and using a little bit of creativity and open-mindedness to become better friends and have lots of fun. So there's a lot of heart, a lot of giggles, and I hope that people find it and enjoy it.
Yeah. We really encourage families here on the podcast to not make this mistake that I made with my son, and really appreciate the fact that kids reading graphic novels, they are reading, and graphic novels can contain some great literature and can really, especially when you're talking about kids who may be reluctant readers, the graphic novels are something that can really turn kids on and turn them on to a love of reading. I'm happy that I didn't make the mistake of trying to ban graphic novels. I actually supported that and, went out and we got the comics and the graphic novels. My mistake was every once in a while going into his room and saying, will you please just read a book without a picture in it? But I think this is great, especially for, kids. I'm imagining that there are kids in kindergarten, first, second grade who are noticing that some of their peers are much better readers than I am for whatever reason. And wow. And, kids can get turned off to reading really early. And this might be a way to kind of save those kids and give them the encouragement that they need to really hang in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's spot on. I mean, I feel like these books, these early reader books, and then bringing this graphic novel format, it allows kids to look like they're reading a grown-up book, but it's really fun and funny, and the pictures are sort of helping along the way. So it's a lot of dialogue. And I know, so my 7-year-old is a really great reader. And so the 5-year-old's always trying to catch up. And the 5-year-old will sit there, and because the pictures are there, I can see him making the connections that he otherwise wouldn't be able to make if there weren't those pictures, because the expressiveness of these comic characters is giving him clues into what they're saying. And so he can sort of check the letters and start to figure out what they're saying, even though he's not really at that level of reading yet. So I feel like it's this great bridge for him to sort of start reading words that he wouldn't be able to read normally.
Yeah. And again, going back to what we talked about with Layla in the Bots 3, it's a great way to give kids a sense of empowerment, letting them know that they can do it. They can read.
Exactly. And I hope that in the back of every FriendBots book, there's also a little comic bit that introduces a tidbit about robots. And so my kids find them really funny. And that's another way to give them a little insight into robotics, which can be a scary, big subject, but it just takes these little tidbits and makes a little joke. And then they laugh and they think it's funny, and they learn a little something about robots.
Yeah. What is it that ignited your interest in robots and in sharing that interest with kids?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, like I said, I was a product designer for Google, and this kind of leads into why I became a writer in general. As we were developing technology experiences for kids, we just found that character was so important, character and story. And so the idea of a robot sort of brings that naturally. So we were doing these cardboard DIY robots that you could build yourself and program yourself. And, I was also working a lot on the Google Assistant, the voice interaction assistant. And, the kids always want to know, well, what's the backstory of this character? What's their favorite color? What's their favorite food? They immediately go to the character in the story. And so I feel like when I'm talking about technology with kids, robots are just so appealing. And in some ways, FriendBots, it's really a friendship story at the heart of it. It happens to be robots, but the heart of the story is about friendship. But I know that there are kids that love robots, just like there are kids that love cars and kids that love, trains. And I think that robots are something that kids are really excited about, and maybe in a way that's different from us as older generations where robots are a little bit scary. I see a different appeal to the kids that I talk to today, where robots are cool and exciting and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those robots that they make, I think it's Boston Dynamics with the dogs that can chase and jump.
Those are a little scary.
Those are a little bit scary.
The FriendBots don't look like that.
It's interesting that you just shared with us that you worked on Google Assistant. I try not to use any of that stuff, but somehow when my beautiful wife came home from work today, I must have hit something on my Google Pixel phone, and I asked my wife how her day was, and the phone said, well, it was a great day. How was your day?
There you go. See, some of that was, people look for personality in those. I mean, that's a human nature thing, is to look for the stories and connect those dots. It's a phone talking to you, but because it's talking to you like a person, you expect it to have this backstory or, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I didn't expect once when I was in my beautiful wife's car that was hooked up to her Apple phone was when I got frustrated with it and was impolite, the phone said, well, that wasn't very nice. I'm too old for this.
Yes. I mean, we have to think about all of those things, especially with kids too, thinking about kids interacting with these devices and, how do they learn to interact with them? There's a lot of research still going on, but I feel like we don't give kids enough credit. Like, they know that this is not a real person, even if they think there's a story around it, just like they know their teddy bear is not a real bear. You know, it's like they know that it's a different type of relationship that they have with this device. But, yeah, you know, we're still learning and figuring out. It'll be interesting to see, you know, 20 years from now, what the robots of the next generation look like.
Yes. I fully expect a robot to be changing my diaper when I'm in a nursing home.
That would be excellent.
Yeah. Hey, tell us, what was it like being the author illustrator of FriendBots?
Oh, gosh, you know, it is so much work. So, you know, huge props to the illustrators out there, because it is a lot of work, but it is so satisfying and so much fun. I definitely feel like, because I was writing and illustrating, I would think about how the book flowed a little bit differently. You know, when I'm writing, I really don't like putting wordless spreads in. It makes me nervous, you know, because I feel like I can't quite get the flow. But when I'm doing the words and the pictures, I feel like, oh, I know, because I'm doing the whole composition, I can put those moments in, and I don't feel like I've left a gap or I get nervous about it. And so I do feel like there's something great about being able to make the entire composition with the words and the pictures. And especially for a graphic novel where you're relying so much on, you know, the expressions of these characters to bring the words to life. So that was really fun. And I have to say, so the team over at Harper Alley, they were so nice to give me a chance on my first, you know, debut illustration. So they worked with me a lot to sort of get the style that, you know, would be polished enough. And they helped me also with, you know, when my expressions looked weird, they would just say, that one's not quite working, and help me get it up to shape. So I learned a lot about the process and also about drawing. And I feel like it's something that it was never on my bucket list, because I didn't even think it was vaguely a possibility. And so that is eye-opening and exciting too, to be able to share with kids, you know, you can do this. You draw your own pictures for your stories all the time at school. And the key, I mean, I kind of feel like being an illustrator for a book, it's about bringing that story to life and bringing those emotions to life. So you don't have to be, you know, the best technical artist. That helps. That's great. But if you can bring the story to life in a way that resonates with the reader, that's really what you want to do, and that's really what's important. So I feel like empowering kids to feel like you are a creator. You are, you know, don't worry about your skills as an artist. You're telling a story through your words and pictures. And yeah, everyone should draw pictures.
Well, I'm really excited. I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about Layla in the Bots 3 and FriendBots and everything else that's coming from the mind and the hands of Vicki Fang.
Oh, thank you. My website is www.vickifang.com, and you can find all of my books there, including links to order or pre-order. And then I also have tons of activities, because as a, you know, experienced designer, I love creating activities. So I have lots of downloadable activity sheets and videos and stuff like that. So go check it out at my website.
Wow, and not that anybody's listening, as a former employee over at Google, is there anything coming out down the pike that we should know about?
I hear that diaper changing robots are.
All right. That's
You didn't hear it here.
Okay. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of FriendBots, and also the author of Layla in the Bots 3, Vicki Fang. Hey, Vicki, thanks so much for being back with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Jed. It's always fun.
It is always so much fun to have Vicki Fang on the show. Be sure to check out Layla in the Bots 3 and also FriendBots. Right now, we're going to welcome the author of Let's Make a Rainbow and also the author of Everybody's Good at Something, Susan Rose. Hey, Susan, welcome to the Reading with Your Kids podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here today.
I'm really happy to have you on the show. I'm really excited. Yoga is one of those things. I exercise every day. I'm approaching my 100th birthday in the not too distant future. My daughter keeps telling me, Pop, you know, the hour and a half of cardio you do every day, it's great, but you know, maybe you should do some yoga and stretch a little bit.
Absolutely. I teach children and then I teach seniors. So I'm working on both ends of the spectrum. And what's great about the senior yoga is there's a way to do yoga the rest of your life. So we do it in a chair, and you can modify the practice and do it for the rest of your life. So it is a great addition to any fitness program for adults or for kids.
Awesome. Well, let's just, for the one person out there that doesn't know what yoga is or has an idea, and it's probably, just yoga. You sweat and you get your body twisted up into these weird shapes. It's more than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many different kinds available now, from gentle restorative yoga where you're laying on the floor and you're supported by props, all the way up to, the power Ashtanga yoga that a lot of young people like to do, and the hot yoga. But there's so much more in the middle of it. And you just have to find the style of yoga that works for you and for your body, and a teacher that works for you. Because yoga is so individual and so personal that you just really have to find what works the best for you. So as I've gotten older, my practice has changed because I can't do the things I used to do. I don't want to do the things I used to do. I need to take care of my body. As you get older, you're more prone to injuries, and yoga can be a way to keep your flexibility, keep your strength, but be a little kinder to your body.
Now, why do you think it's important for kids to start practicing yoga?
Oh, there's so many benefits. First of all, physically, it's, strength building, flexibility, balance, coordination. It's a great training them how to focus and concentrate, which they all need for sports and for school. But then it also has a lot of mental and social benefits as well. So learning how to get along with others, because we do partner things. It's usually in a group. Learning how to self-regulate. With breath awareness and mindfulness, you become more aware of your reactions, and maybe you can make some different choices. And with kids yoga, it's about giving them the tools to do that. So we want to teach them breathing techniques and physical things that they're feeling stressed, they're feeling unsure, if they're feeling angry, that they can go, oh, I know what to do. I need to do my bunny breath or my lion breath or anything like that. And then it's so good for their self-esteem. And that's what the second book is really about, is self-esteem through yoga. And, it's non-competitive, so they're not comparing themselves to another child. They can go at their own pace. Like I said, it's all individual, and fail in a safe environment. So maybe the first time they try a pose, they're not going to be able to accomplish it. But if you keep trying, they'll get it. And it's sort of, so it teaches perseverance. There's just so many lessons that a good kids yoga program can provide.
That's really, there are a lot of things here that I think are really important. The idea of helping kids focus and helping them kind of get more attention, building that attention span. So many kids are, because of the way schools are set up, and kids are all supposed to sit at chairs for hours on end, or now sit in front of a Zoom screen for hours on end. That's not a natural thing for kids to do. Some kids get it really well. Other kids struggle with it, and a lot of those kids are thrown on medication. It's like that's the first choice. It's like, here, just take this pill, sit down, and be quiet. Is yoga something that can help with that?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little
Absolutely.
bit? Tell us a little bit about how that would help that kid that struggles with that little bit of extra energy.
Well, yeah, we're requiring them to sit in a chair for hours at a time, and we know that kids don't function well that way. They need to move. They need to move to learn. Moving sort of integrates the learning. So if I'm teaching a concept and I can put a movement with it, they're going to remember it better. So in my kids yoga program, maybe we talk about angles. We're trying to learn right angles, and there's all kinds of poses that have right angles. So when a child does it physically with their body, they're going to remember that. They're going to integrate it. Also, those kids that just have so much, energy that they need to move all the time, yoga gives them an outlet for that. And it also, they can be active, but it also helps them to learn how to quiet down, how to use their breath to help their heart rate slow down. Because when you slow down your breath, your heart rate slows down as well, and it'll calm the body. So a lot of schools are starting to understand how this can be used with special needs kids and kids that are on the spectrum of hyperactivity and even with autism. So it's great for special needs kids as well.
Yeah. And I also love that you mentioned the fact that practicing yoga is something that can help kids make better choices, or at least help kids stop and actually make a choice as opposed to just reacting.
Our kids are so stressed right now. I mean, even before the pandemic, they were stressed. Now I can't even imagine. I'm not in a school right now, so they are super stressed. And so they're in a fight and flight mode all the time. And it's so hard to learn. You really can't learn when you're in survival, fight, and flight. And yoga gives tools that they can kick in. That's called your sympathetic nervous system. Yoga gives you tools to kick in your parasympathetic, which is the rest and relax and digest. So that's when your body slows down and your heart rate goes down, your blood pressure goes down, all those good things that adults need as well. And it helps to calm the body down, and you get out of that reaction, fight and flight mode and into the relaxation mode, and that's really happened. Yeah. As well as staying out of trouble.
Yeah. Now, is it possible for a family to pick up Everybody's Good at Something or Let's Make a Rainbow, or hopefully both, and actually get good yoga happening in our homes?
Well, I wrote the book so that someone could pick it up and do it with their child or do it with a classroom of children. So the stories weave the yoga instruction into the story. The first one, the Let's Make a Rainbow, is poems. Before the pandemic, I had written a couple little pose poems that I was using with my kids, like a tree pose poem or a warrior pose, and we would just use it in class. And then, last March, all of my classes were canceled, and I was at home going, what am I going to do with myself? So I started writing a few more and saw that maybe this could be a book. So there's about 12 pose poems, describes how to do it. It's a step-by-step in a pose form, in a poem form that leads you through the pose. And then that book also has the sun salutation, which is an 8 to 12 step flow that you can do. So yeah, just with that book, and I've had, parents say, I got the book, my kids love it, we do all the poses together. So it's basically right there for you. Excellent, excellent.
Well, I know that folks are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about you, find out more about your books. Is there a website folks can visit?
Yes, it is www.susanroseyoga, real simple, SUSANROSE, yoga.com. That's the website. And I'm on Facebook at Susan Rose Author, and I'm on Instagram at Susan Rose Yoga.
Very good. Well, we've had a great time. I think I'm going to start with the Let's Make a Rainbow, because I don't want to stress myself out a little bit. And I do know yoga is a wonderful practice, and I think it's a really great way for families to exercise together. We talk about the fact that letting our kids see us read and modeling that behavior, it's a really great way for kids to develop a love of reading, to see their parents reading every single day. We want our kids to grow up to also love to exercise, to move and take care of their body, and to be mindful of themselves and of the decisions that they're making. And I think practicing yoga together is a wonderful way to make that happen in your family. So thank you very much for creating these books, Susan. I think they're going to be a great service for families. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Let's Make a Rainbow and the brand new release, Everybody's Good at Something, Susan Rose. Hey, Susan, thanks so much for spending time with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. You don't want to miss this show. Our guest will be Dan Gottman. He'll be here to celebrate Houdini and me. And he's also going to tell us how so many of his books and stories begin by him asking himself, what if? It's a great conversation. You don't want to miss it. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to thank Vicki Fang. Be sure to check out Layal and the Bots 3. Also want to thank Susan Rose, author of Everybody's Good at Something. I also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Justina Thompson, Helen Frazier. Want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and thank you for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.